Creative Loitering Podcast. Episode 8. LANA ORTIZ.
All right, and we're live, and today we've got LANA Babachenko. Say hello, LANA.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
All right. Now, LANA's a photographer based in Albany, New York. LANA, what kind of background do you have in photography?
None.
None at all? You just bought a camera last week? You're a GWC?
Polaroid.
Yep.
That's it.
That's all you need.
I just whip it out.
Got an iPhone 4. That's all I need.
That's it.
Yep.
You know, it's
but you have an app on your phone where you can soften the face.
I have several
right?
several apps that put lipsticks on and mascaras and soften the face and brand new hair. So yeah, I'm a professional photographer.
And don't forget to over sharpen and over brighten the eyes.
Over sharpen and over brighten the eyes, correct?
I love it when people do that.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. You know what my favorite is?
What?
Is when I do a professional photo shoot.
Yeah.
And get everything perfect. And then someone puts their shitty app filters on my photo on their uncalibrated phone screen that's probably in night mode. So they add blue because it made the screen orange.
Yep.
Yeah. I love it when they do that.
That's my biggest pet peeve, and I actually tell the clients, I think it's written in my wedding contracts that they cannot alter my images. I'm pretty sure it's written into the contract, but that's just for the wedding, not for portraiture. For portraiture, I don't have the contracts. I probably should, but I don't. So yeah, so sometimes they put them out. Oh my God, convert them to black and white, something that should never be converted to black and white. And they go from this beautiful summer day wedding image into a gruesome, very dark looking, you're not even sure if it's a wedding or a funeral kind of image, you know. And I go, what the? And
it's ridiculous.
Oh my God. And I call the client and I'm like, take it down. I'm like, I start with this. Is this my image out there? Oh, no. I put a filter on it. So it's not my image. It's
not anymore.
Right. It's
not the essence of what they're saying. Mm-hmm. They're like, no, we repurposed your image.
Repurposed. Right. So then I said, listen, it's in my contract. You need to take it down. And
because that kind of suggests that it wasn't good enough in the first place and
exactly.
needed to be altered.
First of all. Second of all, it's kind of like, I always compare photography to like bakers, you know, the baking of beautiful cakes, wedding cake. You do not order that wedding cake, right? And then they bring it to you and then you start messing with it, right? You start like, oh, let me just add a little more whipped cream over here. And, you know, it's missing like the dollop of cherry topping over here, you know? Like, oh, let me rearrange these flowers. You know, I kind of want this flower to be like on the bottom, not on the top. You know, you trust that the baker knows what they're doing, you know? And also the other thing is when they say, I just need raw images, I immediately envision the cake naked, right? With no cream, no decorations on it, with nothing. I'm like, so you want me to like package you the cake separate and then the decoration separate and then the flowers, the creams that will go for the flowers separate? I'm like, is that what you want me to do? Because that's what you're essentially asking me. I have to finish the whole cake the way that it should be presented. And that's my final product. What you're asking me is not my final product. And I do not let not final product to leave the studio.
Yep. So I met you about 8 years ago when you and Johnny and Nellie had a studio at the Hilton
Arts Center.
Hilton Arts Center. And there were a few other photographers with space in that building too back then. So I remember there was Castle had a space. Natalie Kartz had a space. There was a designer had a space.
Yep, the fashion designer.
Yep.
Danielle Moses, I think.
Yes. Yeah, who I think went to London.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
In London now?
Moved to London.
Huh.
Yes.
What do you know?
Yeah, so that happened.
Okay.
And
the only thing that didn't happen is the Hilton Art Studio or Art Space, whatever that was. Art Warehouse.
What everybody remembers about the Hilton was there was constantly some kind of problem with the building, like with the heating and cooling or the roof or something was always going on.
Besides the legal problems.
Right.
Right. So apparently we were responsible for every little detail that was happening to the building itself, whether it was outside on the street by the building or on the roof or inside the building. There was never heat. The rain would rain inside the building as well. And apparently there was only one exit. So there was all kinds of violations in that building, but the landlord told us we're responsible for fixing all of them.
There was some kind of story about how the owner had some kind of argument with the city or with the county, and that's why it got shut down. Because he kept arguing with them about everything, so they just shut it off.
Right. Well, apparently the fire hydrants were covered up with garbage cans. Not sure why. I think they were not working fire hydrants, and instead of fixing them, he just covered them up with garbage cans. So when the fire department came and said, how do you intend on putting out the fire? He said, well, we're by the river. The river is right there. Why can't you just get the water from the river? They said, well, what about the wintertime? He's like, well, I'm sure we can figure it out.
That's a good question. What about the wintertime? Because it freezes and, okay, yeah.
Correct. So, and because there was only one exit, they said, how do you think people on the second floor will get out from the building? He said, it's not that tall. Suggesting we just throw our equipment out of the window and jump right out.
Unbelievable.
Creative.
So when I first moved here, I was looking at buildings. I was thinking about opening up something like that. At the time, it was more pointed towards rehearsal spaces for bands because I knew a guy in Detroit who had a successful business. He repurposed one of the old loft-style buildings into rehearsal spaces, and there was a recording studio in there. So I was looking at that. And it turned out that there was already one down there in Albany that had some kind of grant, and they were giving people space so cheap there was no chance of competing. And then...
Oh, wasn't that the place where the artists lived there too? Is that what you were talking about?
No, you might be thinking of the barn.
The barn, that's it.
Yeah,
okay.
The barn's still active. I still talk to people at the barn. Yeah, that's alive and well.
Yeah, I think that was a great idea for the city to promote, to help out the artists, the starving artists.
Well, and they've got excellent management there. They know about fundraising. They know how to run a building.
I've never been there, but a friend of mine apparently has a space there.
Yeah, it's a really good place to support in Albany.
Right.
Yeah, so I've been there quite a few times, doing photo shoots and for events. And it's a great place for everybody to just go there and explore their creativity.
So I didn't know you were looking for a place like an art center or to open up an art center. Is that what you were talking about?
It was something I was looking at doing. This goes back to 07, 08. So, I've been into photography for many years, but I also was very into audio recording for years. I owned a recording studio in Detroit, and I was a mix engineer for years after that. So people would send me all the elements of their recording, and then I would combine all those elements into a stereo file that was ready for
And here
mastering.
I thought you were so talented that you picked up this whole thing on the fly.
Yeah.
Fool me once.
So the whole thinking there was get a space and have a recording studio and post-production, a mixing suite studio, which is essentially the recording studio without the microphones. So what happens after everything's recorded, you would have a post-production facility just for mixing. And at the time, there were quite a few of those that were successful around the country.
I don't think I've heard of any such places in this area.
There aren't.
There aren't, or they are?
Well, recording studios in general, most of them have shut down in the last 10 or 15 years. what happened was all this really competitive equipment came out at much lower prices. So it all happened very quickly.
Oh, I see. So you can kind of it's not DUI. What is it? DYI?
DYI, right.
I can never say it.
And there's so many parallels between audio recording and photography. For example, what happened right around 99 or 2000, two things happened simultaneously, both involving computers and the internet. The first one was Napster came out and people started downloading music for free instead of buying music at the record store.
Guilty.
Right. We're all guilty.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have
I'm in good company.
many thousands of songs.
Right.
Sure. And simultaneously, what was happening in the background was computers were getting much faster and digital recording was getting much more accessible. So in the mid-90s, you needed for a, let's say, major production style recording, for a major label artist to record at your studio, you would need about $1 million worth of equipment. And that number started going down. And by the late 90s, that number was down to about 250,000 that you would need. And a lot of that had to do with the digital equipment just costing less, because a lot of it was just the tape machine and these huge consoles you needed. But meanwhile, there were all these cheap recording devices coming out where you could pay $1,000 for a box and plug all your microphones in, and it sounds pretty good.
Okay.
So we went from recording on tape to recording into these digital boxes straight into our computers. And all of a sudden, you could get a decent sounding recording with about $10,000 or $20,000 worth of equipment.
Right.
And the parallel for photography would probably be the way digital came in, and now all of a sudden you're not shooting with film anymore.
Correct.
And you can see what's going on.
And everybody is a photographer because of the iPhones and everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's maybe annoying at a wedding, but I think also, I was talking to somebody about this, people forget most of us like taking photos. And as that gets easier, more of us take more photos. And there's all these big numbers that you look at, that more photos were taken last year than in all of history combined because of the phones. And that's great.
I think it's wonderful, the fact that I actually was just watching a British show about post-mortem photography. And that was a big thing back then in 1800s, at the just startup of the photography as an art form, where people could not afford a family photo, and they would wait till the family member dies, and then they will splurge on hiring a post-mortem photographer, and he would come in and he would pose the dead body to look as if they were alive, and the makeup and the clothes, and open up the eyes. And the family would gather around the person and they would take a picture. That was their family photo. And the person could have been dead for 2 to 3 days, maybe even more. Sometimes I've seen those pictures with eyes drawn on the lids closed. So the eyelid is closed and you can see the skin is already deteriorating, but the eyes were drawn with a paint on top of the eyelids to make it look like the person's eyes are open. And that was a big business. Not many photographers were in this business. You consider to be a very the top-notch level professional, to be in that. And obviously there was no editing. And people were doing all kinds of crazy things with this kind of photography, but that's how often families could afford to take a picture of their loved ones, compared to now, where it's available any second, any moment, at any time. Pretty much any device can take a picture right now. And I'm glad that they have those memories now. They don't have to, and it's digital, so you can store it in somewhere on cloud, on your computer, on Drive. But you can access those images. back in the days, if you lost that one picture that you purchased from postmortem photographer, that's it. You're done. If it burned out, with the house, as it usually happened with houses built not up to code, a lot of houses would catch on fire several times in one person's lifetime. You would lose everything. And so I think it's a good thing the photography is available for candidates. It's a bad thing that people forget that there is candidates and then there is professional portraiture, and two are vastly different and results are vastly different.
You probably have more family photos of your girls than anybody else I know.
No, I'm like the shoemaker. The shoemaker is the one who walks around barefoot because he's making everybody else's shoes. Same thing with me. I only have, as far as the family photos, like all of my girls together, I only have 2 pictures.
Of all of them together?
Of all of them together. There are snapshots. There are snapshots, but they are not portraiture. I don't consider them portraiture. They're snapshots when they lounge on the couches and they watch TV or we're gathering together for some kind of holiday, and I just make them all sit on one couch and take a snapshot of that before they kill me, for making them do that. But the portraiture that I'm known for, like I only have 2.
2? Mm-hmm. Of the 4 together?
Of the 4 together.
Yeah.
I have to start photoshopping them.
Then there's like 37 of 1 or 2 or 3 of them.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Yeah, that's probably accurate.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Together, it's very hard. As the older they get, the more involved they become with their lives, the harder it is for me to bring them together. And when they do bring together for family portraiture, my style, it is a lot of planning involved. There is wardrobe involved. There is makeup involved. There is hairstyling involved. So there is a significant effort to put forth to produce an image of a family portrait that would be up to my par. They don't have time for that. They're way too busy. They don't have time for that. So then I have to guilt them into it. I say, well, when I die... Oh. And you'll go look for any trace of me in your life.
That's your tactic?
That's it.
Yeah.
I just guilt people into things. Hey, it works.
Yeah. I think more families should get back into that. At least every year or 2. They should go into a studio and get a proper shot and get some prints made.
Prints, yes.
And these photos go on the cloud and they go on social media. But how many, somebody loses their phone, they didn't have them on the cloud, or they lost their password. Mm-hmm. How many of those digital photos, because they weren't printed?
Forget. You just forget where they are. Sometimes I forget things all the time, and I just give up and abandon and open up a different account, and you're right. Unless you print something, it's very easy. It's not tangible. It's very easy to kind of out of sight, out of mind, and forget it exists. And it's only the prints that constantly keep resurfacing when you're cleaning the house, when you're moving, when you're updating your furniture and just, cleaning things out. You always find those prints and you always look at them with a sense of nostalgic oh, look at that, look how little they were, look at this and that, and I think that is, that's where the difference is between the digital and the print. Print carries very tangible, very compounding value to it. With each year, it becomes more and more precious.
I just went through a bunch of prints I had, like old stuff, and it was a disaster. It looked like a bomb went off. I had them in these boxes, and they were just everywhere.
But not a single one would you throw away, right?
No, I wouldn't throw any of them away.
As if...
Not family photos, no.
Right. And a lot of times what you print, you do not throw away, whereas the digital is so easy to delete. You get upset with somebody, you just, forget it. I'm just going to delete this. You need space on your whatever device that you are saving them on. So you go, okay, I can sacrifice these ones, But prints, you will always find space for them. You will never just say, oh, you know what, this box is not closing. Let me just shred this photograph. You'll find a way to keep it. Somebody may be looking for something like that, like even if I'm no longer friends with the person, if I have a photo of them and the family needs it, I had this happening to me just recently, about a year ago. The family, I knew the client had cancer about 6 years ago. She did one family session with me, and then she came back for another one. The first one was outdoors. The second one was inside the studio. And we did 2 family sessions. I knew she had cancer. I thought she was in remission, and then I see on Facebook she passed away. Very young woman. She was in her early 40s. Very sad story. She left behind 2 wonderful little kids, and the family came to me and purchased her photos, the prints of the session. Then I've seen so many posts where, especially now with COVID, where people passed away and a family posts regrettable things, how little pictures they have of them, and how they wish they were taking more pictures. The kicker of them all was this woman. She was in her 50s, very young 50s. And she was probably my biggest fan. If you go back on Facebook and you see the pictures I post of my work, you'll probably will see she's resharing them on her wall. It doesn't matter that she doesn't know the clients, my clients. She's not friends with them. There is no connection. She just was my fan, right? And she would repost those images on her wall. And she would always, in private, she would always provide me with words of encouragement. And it went on for years, And back in my mind, I was always appreciative of her being my number one fan, that I thought one day she's going to come to me. She has a daughter who's 13. She's going to come to me and she's going to ask for family photos. And I'm going to gift it to her for all these years of her being my fan, my number one fan. She sent me a message, last message. She sent it to me on May 19th. On May 30th, she died suddenly. And that session never happened. And the family did confirm to me. They said she kept talking how one day she's going to come to you and her husband, her daughter, and she wanted for you to photograph her family. She was so excited about that. And now this will never happen. And it's the saddest thing.
Carpe diem. Don't put it off. Just get in there and get the photos.
You think
right?
you think you have time. You think you have all the time in the world, and then this thing happens,
Yeah, that's been a reminder for a lot of us through all this. That's why I went through those photos, the family photos and all that, just to get all that together. It's like, well, if I don't make it, I might as well have everything set aside in some kind of order where people can just easily
and
go
that's
in
just
and find
for
it.
you. And that's just for you. Mm-hmm. But think about it like that. And I always tell people that you think you take pictures for yourself. A lot of time women are the guilty one of saying this. Well, I don't want to spend money on me. This is just take pictures of my kids, of my husband. I just don't want to spend any amount of money on me. I don't need it. I have pictures of myself. That's what they say, right? But really, and that's where I tell them, you think you're taking pictures for yourself, but you're really taking them for future generations, for when you're gone and they have to reconnect with you. Because with time, you start forgetting people, you start forgetting their faces, their voices, their character. So you go and you look at the photograph, and that's kind of like a little visit with people who are gone. So that's what I've been telling people, and that's what I've been seeing, because once they pass away, they don't see the effect of these images and the effect they have on the people they leave behind, the loved ones, the friends that they leave behind. And those are the ones who are reposting their pictures. And some of those pictures are my pictures that I took. And they're reposting them, and they're, well, at least I have that, at least I can look back at that, and I have this memory with me. So I think it's very important. I remember when I was born, I was a late child. My mom and my dad were 35 and 36 when I was born. That's pretty late in my country. When I was born, by the time I met my grandmother, she had a stroke and she lost the ability to speak. She was about in her 80s, right? My grandfather passed away by the time I was 4 or 5. She lived till I was about 6 or 7. Grandmother. And I could not speak to her. I could not find out what kind of person she was. She could not tell me the stories of her youth. She could not tell me. She lived through World War II, and German soldiers had actually a center stationed in our hut where my grandmother was while my grandfather was at war. They stationed there. All of their commanders were there, and they spared her livestock so that they can feed themselves. But they killed all the livestock in the village, and because she had 4 kids, and they stationed in her place, she was able to feed her 4 kids as well. She couldn't tell me any of those stories. Some of them I heard from my mom, who kind of remembered, but she was 4 years old when the war happened. But I would have loved to talk to my grandmother. I would have loved to get to know her. And I've had a few pictures of her from back when she was 20, 25. That's about it. I think I had literally 2 pictures of her. And I remember staring at those pictures, looking at the face and trying to figure out, who are you? What kind of person were you? Living in Ukraine during the time of, it's called Holodomor, right? Which is basically the starvation, the great starvation that the country had to go through. And then having these 4 children and raising them while your husband is for 4 years at war and you don't even know if he ever comes back. What kind of woman was she, and you just stare at this picture and you're trying to figure it out, trying to reacquaint yourself with your ancestor. And that's why I think that the pictures are for future generations.
My family has photos going back about 120 years.
That's
not a
amazing.
lot.
But yes, they couldn't afford them back then.
And there's this old style cursive handwriting on the back with the names and the years
and the years,
the locations on most of them.
Uh-huh.
But it was sad to see. There's this box full of them that we went through a few years ago at my dad's house. Mm-hmm. Some of the photos, nobody knew who they were. Mm-hmm. And nobody wrote on the back.
Yeah, we used to write all the time. We used to, the pictures I brought with me. So when I came to this country, I had a duffel bag. That's what I came here with. And half of the duffel bag was my clothes. And the other half was pictures. I took everything my mother let me take with me. And on the back of them, we did write the location, everybody who was in the picture, and the year. And that's just kind of how it was, right? So, but now these pictures have been through hell and high water. They are curved. They went through a fire. They were put out, the fire was put out. So they went through the water damage, through fire damage, heat. On top of it all, they're old. They're black and white, old pictures. So I still have them, but I can't look at them because they're curled up. They're like a telescope. Okay, so I can look inside this rolled up paper and kind of remember what it looked like, but I can't open it because it will immediately disintegrate. I'll open it and it's gonna crumble in my hands.
Anyone listening to this who knows how to
help me
restore those photos and digitize them, feel free to contact LANA ORTIZ.
Goodness, that would be amazing.
There's been some pretty brilliant retouching jobs and colorizations I see in some of the groups that I follow, where they'll take a 100-year-old photo and clean it up, colorize it, or even older.
Remove the damage.
Yeah, in some cases, they're even restoring some of the wet plate photography that's still out there.
Right, tedious work. I tried to do that on several of them. And it's a tedious work, and I definitely, I would love if there is like anything that does it, any place that does it on a bulk level, because it's literally my whole life. So what happened was that when I came over here, I was 19. I had those pictures. By the time I was 20, my house burned down. When I came home, the fire truck already left. And I just had the house that was burned through and damaged by the water. And it was middle of the winter. It was January 2nd or January 3rd. And everything was, I assumed everything burned. So I found a couple of heirlooms, like a necklace that my mom gave me that completely melted. And other couple of things that I brought with me that completely changed their appearance and had no more. It was just a memory. It was just a piece of metal that had a memory. And of course, all the pictures were gone. That was the biggest sadness, to lose that, because that was half of my life. That's what I brought with me, and it was gone. So, in following 10 years, I had 3 of my children, and they did not believe I existed before I was 19. Like, they literally thought I was never a child, because there was never a picture to show them, and they were little. So they said, well, where's the picture where you were little? And I said, well, I don't have any, and their grandparents, I had to describe them. I was begging my other relatives to send me whatever pictures they had of my mom and dad and my brother, so that they could see what their family looked like. And I had nothing to show to them. And every time I would talk about me being little, to them it was like a different galaxy, different dimension, because it just was never real. They never could see it. It never existed. And then I get a phone call. And the guy goes, you will not remember me, but I remember you. You lived at this address about 10 years ago. He said, and I was there when the fire happened. And when the firefighters were throwing out all the items from my apartment into the street through the windows. He said, I went around and I saw a lot of those items were black and white photographs. He said, I collected them all from the snow, brought them home because I didn't know who lived in that house, who it belonged to. He brought it home and he put them inside those Bell Atlantic thick books, the phone books, and to straighten them out because they already started to curl. And he put them in his garage, and forgot all about them. 10 years later, they sold the house and they were moving, and he started throwing away those books and the pictures started to fall out. And he said, oh my God, he's like, I had every intention to return those images to her and completely forgot. So he found me and he said, I would like to meet up with you and to give it to you. Now, this is a little segue. If those images were not prints, if they were USB drives, do you think the person would be compelled to pick them up and save them? Probably not. But seeing that it was somebody's life, somebody's family, somebody's story, he was compelled to save that. He was not compelled to save my favorite red dress that was thrown out. He was not compelled to save the shoes that I thought were the cutest, right? But he was compelled to save the images of my family. And it was the best gift I ever received from somebody I never knew. He returned half of my life to me. Because then I remember I brought the pictures back home and I was showing them to my children and I was telling them, this is your grandfather, this is your grandmother, this is your aunt, uncle. And I was introducing them to their history, basically to their family. And they got a chance to see me as a child, and I did prove that I existed before 19. And that's just kind of when I did receive the camera in 2011 as a gift. That was kind of the idea in my head, that I should start taking pictures of families, and I should do it more often with myself and my own family, and should stop hiding away, because you just never know what you're going to lose, what kind of images you're going to lose, what people you're going to lose. On this day, I don't have my mom, my dad, or my brother. So all I have is the pictures.
That's a good point about the USB drive. That also counts for some of the cloud storage. Personally, I don't have a lot of confidence in that. You might have read about the guy who died with, I think it was 100 million in Bitcoin, and it's just gone because nobody had the password except for him. How many people die every day, and they've got all these files and photos, and they didn't share the password, and you're not going to get
exactly
those files. So if it's on social media, like one of my best friends died in 2018, and we
I remember that.
Yeah, and so there's the memorial Facebook pages now.
Right.
And so what they posted is kind of preserved on there for now.
Right.
All the prints burned in the fire. And one of his friends contacted me a few months ago saying, hey, do you have any pictures of Steve? Because something happened with my cloud storage and everything's gone.
Exactly.
Do you have any photos? And
it's a pseudo safety to think that if you store it on drive, and I think it's whether it's on cloud or on physical drive, that it's golden, it's preserved. And I think it was either you or John Iannelli that told me that, which I didn't even know, but one of you said that it's not a matter of if your jump drive will fail or any kind of storage drive will fail, it's the matter of when.
Absolutely. So one thing that I recently did was make that information available. So if something happens to me, there are files that my family can access.
Oh, how did you do that? Share with that group.
You just put it in a will.
Oh, you put it in a will?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just make the URL and the password and whatever you need available.
Wonderful.
However you're storing on the cloud.
Wonderful.
Now that's on file with a third party.
Wonderful.
Digitally, but it's still safe.
Yeah.
So you can put that on, let's say, an AWS server, and they've got redundant storage on the East Coast and West Coast. So even if there was some kind of war or EMP was detonated or something really big happened,
they have a backup.
Maybe they'll still be safe.
Maybe.
But at the same time, digital storage is so cheap now, there's really no excuse for not having redundant in-house storage too.
Right.
And that's something that
I'll just put TJ Spalding in my will, and he's going to figure it out.
He's pretty good at it. He saved a card I accidentally formatted a couple years ago.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. I shot 2 events in a day, and I mixed up the cards while I was changing them.
Yeah.
And formatted one.
It happens. I think you hear of my problems with my drives every 3 years, right? Like I go through, oh my God, something failed. Oh my God, I lost all the images.
Well, that's why with all my cameras, what I always do is I only use SanDisk brand. The only exception is XQD cards for the newest Nikon because only Sony makes XQD cards.
Right.
And I get the biggest, fastest ones I can find, and I back everything up, and then I back it up on another drive, if not on the cloud right away, before I ever format the card.
Right.
And unless I'm really busy, I try to follow a rule that I don't format that card.
Right, me too.
Until I deliver the project.
Right.
Yeah.
I do that, and even then, I still hold it. If I have other cards that are available, I still hold the images on the card until I absolutely need it.
Right. So I've got a couple commercial projects I'm in the middle of processing right now. So I've got those backed up on an 8 terabyte Thunderbolt drive, and they're also on the internal drive here.
Yeah.
And they're also on a XQD card. So when I went to the shoot yesterday, I swapped out the XQD card for the other one, so I wouldn't have to format it yet.
How many images, just for fun, how many images do you think we produce? Like, you know how I shoot, I kind of know how you shoot. How many images do you think we produce in 10-year period?
In the world?
Between like you and me. That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
You for
you
yourself.
and I collectively, how many
Not
photos?
collectively. You separately, me separately. What do you think?
I've got about 100,000.
In 10 years?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. About 100,000 photos.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I have more with all the weddings and everything. I'm pretty sure I have.
Shooting weddings, it adds up a lot faster.
Yes.
Yeah, because you take so many in one day.
Exactly.
Yeah, even if I remember the last wedding I did, you reminded me not to
overshoot.
Right. It's going to happen in some situations.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely certain situations. Other situations, you can predict what's happening and you can wait for that shot. And a lot of times, being a wedding photographer as well, when those situations happen and you can predict the human emotion and wait for it and then just take that shot versus keep shooting and shooting and shooting and hoping that you'll get it at some point. You just kind of, you can predict certain things, but other things you cannot predict absolutely. And you just, but that's where overshooting comes from, in a sense that you pick and choose your battles where you overshoot, don't do it where you're looking for certain storytelling moments and look for it when something unpredictable might happen. So then you're just on high speed shooting, and just hoping to get that one shot. My philosophy is usually to not overshoot, but that's coming from portraiture, from posing people and knowing exactly what kind of result I'm looking for. It's not to hope that I will get it. It's to know that I will get it. I'm just going to fine tune it with a little adjustments, in posing, and I will get exactly the image that I want to get. So for me, when people walk away, they go, well, here's my portrait session. How come I only have 20 images? There are 20 the best images, everything in between. Like it may take me 10 shots to get to that final image, but everything in between is pretty much a work in progress to get to that one image. And why would you want to get, so you can get 200 images or you can get 20 best ones. Why would you want to get the 200 of work in progress versus 20 of the best ones? And when you look at it that way, they understand and they agree, because we're used to in this society and the way that the studios in the mall works, we're used to that they just give you everything. Here's everything and then you choose. And then they go, oh, I don't know how to choose. They all look the same to me.
You get this big proof sheet. Yeah.
Exactly. I have 300 images and then all of them become devalued because there's too many of them.
And they're too small to make an educated decision anyway.
Correct. And then you just kind of, but more than anything, it's like it's devaluing of the image. You can give one beautiful image and you cherish it versus 9 images precluding that one that mean kind of nothing. They're not the best. They're not fine-tuned, and then seeing those 9 versus that last one is kind of devalues that last image, because the magic is gone, so I would rather show that last one, the magical one.
The only exception for overshooting that I pretty consistently break, where I know I'm overshooting a little bit. That's another question. When do you know you're overshooting? And I think you spelled that out pretty well. You're overshooting when you're getting the same thing over and over. There's no change. You're just getting the same thing.
Right.
But sometimes I'll get almost the same thing several times in a row when I'm shooting at a very, very wide aperture. Mm-hmm. That lifestyle shoot we did yesterday is a good example of that. I did some doubles, and I'm glad I did because in that case, my depth of field was like half an inch to get their eye in focus. So I would focus, get a shot, and then focus, recompose again, and get basically the same shot again, but make sure I can get that eye sharp. And as I went through those, I was glad that I did that.
Yeah, sometimes the software, when you're playing with a very shallow depth of field, sometimes the software within or the calibration of the lens within the camera, right? Sometimes that can be tricky. You think it's focusing on what you want it to focus on, but then it's like maybe like 2 millimeters to the front or to the back, and it's. I don't consider that overshooting. I consider that like a safety shooting. When you take the same images, right? You take the same images, but you're playing. You're being very actually responsible in that case. You're taking several shots where there is a possibility of that sharpness to not be there or be there, and you're just kind of like, what do they say in my language? They say, if you know where you'll fall, you put a pillow over there, right? So this is the same. This is where you may fall. Shallow depth of field is where we're shooting a portrait. Shallow depth of field.
What's that phrase? Let's hear it.
In my language?
Yeah.
In Russian?
Yeah.
Okay. Если бы я знала, где я упала, я положила туда подушку.
Put a pillow where you know you're going to fall.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and now you do know, you're granted this knowledge as a photographer that you do know there's a possibility of you falling. So you put a pillow of taking 2-3 more shots that will definitely give you a good sharp focus on the eye or whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish, But in the events, that is different. Also because I think it's getting out of hand with the wedding photography. Whenever I shoot an 8-hour wedding, I come up to about 1,200 images after I delete all the ones that are not worthy of even keeping. So about 1,200 images. If I'm working with you, you will probably give me another 1,200. So that's 2,400 images. Nobody will ever look through all of them, So, and a lot of companies that do weddings on the budget for people provide photographers and a DJ and a photo booth and all that stuff, like within one package, one cheap package. They tell you right away that reduce the number of images you are submitting to like 600 per wedding.
Yep.
And in my experience, when I give 1,200 images for the client to choose from to build their album, and I say stick to 100 images, the client is having a very hard time because of how many. And if you talk to John Iannelli, who's been shooting now for being a 17-year-old that he's been shooting for 30 years now.
Exactly.
Yes. He'll tell you that they used to send them out to shoot weddings with 3 rolls. That's 72 images. That's it.
That's all you get.
That's all you get. And that was all for everything, 8-hour photography.
Have you noticed a difference where people pose for a photo, and it is different since film? Because it used to be everybody would take that moment very seriously because they knew there would only be 1 or 2 snapshots taken.
That's a good point.
Because of the cost of the film and the processing of the film.
Yes.
Everybody would take that moment really seriously. Mm-hmm. Now they're just
goofing around.
Oh my God.
People photobombing.
Because there's so many photos.
Right.
Anybody can just take a bunch with their phone.
Yep.
You remember that woman I was talking to that you had spoken to also that wanted a cheap wedding photographer, and she was trying to get the price down by saying, we'll just use our phones at the reception.
Right.
Yeah.
I love when they say that, I love when they say that. I also remember the first year of photography, I was so excited, right, to be documenting everything through my lens. And then I realized I was not present any longer in a moment. I was present in creating that image, taking the right image, making sure the exposure was correct, making sure the depth of field is right, making sure I include everybody, I picked the right the right lens for the shot I want to take, but I was not present in the moment any longer, And then on top of it all, a lot of times I would ruin the moment when people would fool around, continue with their moment, and I haven't taken the shot that I wanted to take, so I would try to bring the moment back by telling them, no, go back to where you were.
Yeah.
Rewind. Right. Rewind. Let's do it again. Take two. And that was ruining the experience of living. Of life's experience. So I'm very serious about, at least for myself, I do not try to take pictures nonstop of everything. I made it a rule for myself not to travel with my professional camera unless I'm going out looking for, like an assignment. Sometimes I scout a location for engagement photo shoot, or sometimes I've noticed sometimes I need to take a break from portraiture, and my break lies either in creative photography, where I do severe Photoshop and compositing of images, or a landscape photography. So if I'm going out with that in mind, then of course I'll take my professional camera with me. But other than that, it's the phone and using it to a minimal, because I'm not in the moment and I want to be in the moment. For that reason. Although, you know what, there were several times when me and you went out for like some fun photo shoots, and I'm thinking I'm collecting images of decay. Remember we went to that train depot? What is it called?
That train's gone,
I know.
Yeah, they took the train.
I know. It's such a landmark. I don't understand why they took it.
The train has left the abandoned train yard.
I know, but we went there, and I told you that I needed to collect images of decay, right, of different textures and everything, right? And I was collecting the images, right? And I was literally going from place to place, and going through different cars in that train and photographing the walls, the chipped paint on it, the seats and everything. And you were doing something else, right? And then we talked and we said, okay, done, let's go. And we left, right? And then later, you sent me pictures of me photographing those things.
Ah, yes.
And I
forgot about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was
annoyed.
At first I was annoyed. Yeah, at first I was annoyed. But a second I'm like, oh, this is nice. I never see myself, from like how other people see me, And that was you basically showing me what other people see, when I'm busy, when I'm not looking, when... it was a nice gesture. It was a glimpse at myself, learning about myself a little bit.
A lot of the people I shoot with feel exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Like it's annoying in the moment.
Yeah.
And then some time goes by.
And you start appreciating it. There. Yes.
That happens to me too. Like CeeLo got a couple shots of me a few years ago that I found when I was going through photos. And I had forgotten that photo even existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, there's a photo of me and CeeLo. It was out in Amsterdam at some abandoned carpet factory 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, there we are.
Yeah.
It was a good shot.
Oh, it's lovely to get something like that. It's you never asked, and it's kind of like a gift somebody is giving you, kind of like on a download, like slip it into your, on your side of the table, kind of like here.
I got one of Spalding at First Prize a year or two back. He's photographing these huge icicles. And he's really into the moment, and he's focusing on the icicles, and Spalding's in the zone. And I got this real dramatic light shot of where it just kind of, the light came through the icicles.
Oh, that's beautiful. I know what you mean. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just
why
gave
didn't
an
I
outline.
see that one?
It was just like a profile. He was in the shadows, so all you see is the profile of the camera and of his face and his hand on the camera.
Profile of the camera. Remember that shot I took of you in Congress Park?
Congress Park. Where's Congress Park?
Troy.
In Troy.
Overlooking Waterville.
I don't remember that photo.
I put my camera on a tripod because we were doing long exposure, but it was too low. And it was...
Maybe I do remember that. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Should pull that up on
we should pull that
device
up.
or something.
It's somewhere.
Yeah,
it's on Facebook
fun.
somewhere. I have to find it.
Add some photos, or maybe we'll do a video cast soon and add some.
I was supposed to do that. I forgot. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. We'll do it again.
No, we're working the bugs out of the video. When I say we, I mean me.
Yeah.
Just figuring out.
So this kind of like helps you that I said no video.
It definitely reduced the list of tasks I had to do before we started today.
Good.
But a lot of that goes to autofocus, which is, maybe the final frontier of our choices of photography gear. I've been looking at that quite a bit lately. So Sony builds all the sensors in their factories. So Canon orders sensors from a company owned by Sony, as does Nikon. They design them, but they have a Sony-owned company build them. So we're to shoot yesterday, and there's Gregory ORTIZ is using a Nikon D750. And then Lisa Wood is using a Canon, I think a 5D Mark III or 4. Natalie's using a 5D Mark IV. I'm using a Nikon D850. And Panzerino is using one of the newer Sonys.
Okay.
And if you took the same shot in the same light with all those, it's basically almost the same sensor. It's like when you shoot a wedding with someone with a Canon and a Nikon versus 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I can't tell the difference immediately.
Right.
Anymore.
I remember when I switched from Canon to Nikon, one of the reasons I switched was the sharpness. But that could have been operator's error or a non-calibration of lens to the body of the camera. But the sharpness was something that kind of swayed me. Something that kind of swayed me. The biggest thing was that how clever the buttons were on Nikon body.
Exactly. That was a huge part of why I switched from Canon to Nikon is because I didn't like the Canon controls, and I still don't like the Canon controls.
They make no sense to me.
Canon camera controls are like going up a dry hill backwards on cross-country skis. It's ridiculous.
Correct.
I just want to delete a photo. Okay, on Nikon, you just hit the garbage can button twice, and you're done. With Canon, it's like delete. Are you sure? Okay, let me turn this dial. Yes. And then I got to go over here and hit yes.
Yes, the dial, everything. So
and then you got to wait for a second while it deletes the photo.
Right.
Like, are you serious? You're going to actually make me wait to use my camera?
Well, I used Canon for about a year, and I never mastered the controls on the camera without looking. So constantly, if I'm looking through the lens, trying to get the shot, trying to compose a shot, and I'm resetting something, I have to look away. I have to abandon that task, look in the controls, reset everything, because none of them make sense. With Canon, what I found is that once my hand goes on the body of the camera, my fingers naturally fall on all the controls that I will need to take a shot without having to abandon the task of composing a shot through the glass. So I learned real quick how to manipulate all the controls without ever looking at what I'm doing with my fingers. And that to me is a huge win on Canon's part. That makes it very user-friendly. Their bodies very user-friendly, very...
on Nikon's part.
I'm sorry, what did I say? Canon? You know what I mean. Nikon's part, yes. So, and till this day, it's really, to this day, I just marvel at how smart, the engineers, the designers of the body was to take a look at where the hand falls and how to make it more convenient for the user.
Exactly. And they've been pretty good about leaving most of those controls as they come out with new models. I say pretty good because they keep moving the ISO button.
Oh, really?
Which I don't appreciate because I am often using different models of the Nikon 800 series at the same time.
Right.
And I have to remember. So a lot of times I'll reach for the wrong button.
Right.
It's muscle memory.
Right.
But as you said, with Nikon, if you're using the same model
which
for
I
a long
do.
time, you're right. If you've got a pile of D750s and you're like, hey, something's wrong with this 750. Pass me another 750. And you just keep shooting.
Exactly.
And that's a great way to do it. They keep moving the ISO button, and if I've been doing a little more video lately, and with the Nikon D850, the follow focus when you're shooting video is the worst of any flagship camera. Sony is probably at the top with their auto eye focus. It just grabs eye focus. And just locks on, and you can walk around the frame and it'll completely follow you. You can walk out of the frame and come back and it'll pick you up again. If I had my D850 pointed at me right now and I just leaned forward like this, you would see the lens breathe and it would go out of focus and then reobtain my face just from one slow movement a couple feet back. It's that bad. And there's all this pressure for them to update the firmware to make it better, and they won't do it. Instead, they come out with a camera for $1,100, a D50 or something.
What is this, just for video?
No, it's just part of their Z series. So they came out with the Z6 and Z7 that some people like. There's one memory card slot. And then they came out with an even cheaper version of that called the Z50, I think it's called.
So, this is right now you're speaking Chinese to me, right? You do know that. I think we all agreed that...
Let's switch to Russian.
No. Let's talk about this. I think everybody knows I'm non-technical, right?
Now they do.
I don't know what things are. Okay. When I need to know what things are, I have 3 people in my life that I go to. One of them is you, one of them is John Celo, and one of them is Gianna Anelli, right? If I don't know, if I need something to happen, I describe that thing that needs to happen to one of you technical junkies. And then you guys come up with, oh, well, then you need this and that. And you just point me to what I need to get or what I need to research or how to set it up or whatever. Literally, I just can't. It's a different language for me. My mind just doesn't go there with the technical stuff.
But you know how to use your camera really well.
I do know how to use my camera, but do you see I'm not switching? It's 750 all the way.
So here's what I'm trying to say and maybe saying badly. The 750, the 760 or whatever that new one they tried to come out with that nobody wanted, or 780. See, I don't even remember what it is. Yeah. Nobody does. They're like, we don't care.
Yeah.
So then Nikon comes out with the D6. Nobody
Wasn't it
wants
700? That. No, wait.
No,
it was 600. It was 600 that had the oil issue. Okay, there was oil droplets on a sensor, and they had that issue. And then they issued 610 that remedied that problem. But not all D600s had that oil issue. Mine didn't, but a friend of mine's did. Then they issued 610. That one's supposed to remedy everything. I did not fall in love with either one. 750 is where my comfort zone is. I did try. I was shooting a wedding with Gianna Anelli with his Sony mirrorless one. The display makes you it just. I like the painterly look of everything, right? And right now the display on my Nikon also shows me like a painterly picture, right? The preview.
You have the sharpness turned down.
No, it's not even that. It's just that the mirrorless preview on John's is so super high def.
Yeah.
It's so sharp. It makes me literally uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, I can't. Like, I see too much. Like, I can't. It's just too much, So in my mind, I because I started with you guys, right? I started with a lot of male photographers around me, and you guys are so technical, and you're so about sharpness, and you're so about like, is this D6173 or D6175? Which one are you using? And I'm like, I don't know. It's a thing that does this, and that's pretty much how I talk about technical tools, right? So because I started with you guys, I was very nervous and super anxious with getting sharpness, with getting everything just right? And then when I went back to my roots, which is line in paintings, right? And I studied the paintings, and I want my pictures to look like paintings. I've noticed nothing is very sharp in a painting. It's not extremely sharp, and therefore it's kind of, you have to step back and you have to take a look at a large painting in order to see a picture, and nothing is really sharp. Our eyes don't see it, don't see images that sharp. As a matter of fact, if I'm looking at your eye, I may kind of sort of like see it sharp, but everything else is kind of fall out, and it's just our brain doesn't process it that way. So I stopped worrying about the sharpness. I'll be honest with you. I'm not after the super duper sharp stuff, I'm just after the image that looks like painting, and that, like, in a way that freed me from wanting to constantly upgrade my camera, because, every time I hear a new camera coming out and you guys start talking about it and you're like, oh, it's like super duper sharp. Now you can get like 182 pixels in one image, like it's amazing, or like it's 182 megabytes, one image.
That's how we sound.
Well, without the accent.
You know what might be happening here?
What?
Is everybody has a list of things they wish their camera could do better, except you.
I don't. Because I take an image so that I can start editing it afterwards. So my magic lies in the afterwards editing. The image has to be good enough, but it's not the final, because I always want to do something with the image. So for you guys, a lot of times once you press the button and once you see the image, this is it. You're done. There might be like minor adjustments. For me, it's like I want to create something that it wasn't. It was a photograph, and I wanted to make it look like a painting, like it's something surreal.
That's what I'm often doing. Also, especially with some of the commercial composite stuff that I do.
You have to.
And so at the top of my list of things I wish that my Nikon D850 would do better is focus. So I've had it calibrated 3 times. I've calibrated it myself several times.
You mean like the lenses to the body?
Correct.
Okay. Where did you do that?
I had Alec Camera Works do it. I've got the equipment here. I did it a couple of times. My lenses are calibrated perfectly to my camera bodies. However, when I'm shooting hypercritical, like home design projects in live view mode on a tripod with exposure delay mode, and I'm manually focusing at 100% zoom, and it just won't show me what's in focus. Like, it really won't show me. That's just a glitch with Nikon. It won't resolve 46 megapixels onto that monitor at 100% zoom.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just won't do it. And then you'll take the picture and zoom in, and it's tack sharp, but you didn't know.
Right.
And I'm doing everything right, and I've asked a bunch of smart people about it. I'm like, while I'm standing still, I'm turning the focus ring, and then I'm waiting a couple of seconds and letting the camera stabilize, and it still looks soft. That's a Nikon issue. If you want to shoot video with the Nikon, you're basically at manual focus only.
Right.
And that's part of with doing this, that's really started to become a problem.
Yeah. I think for commercial, shoots, I think that's different. You are trying to get somewhere, for me, a lot of times if I get too sharp of an image, I have to soften it. As a matter of fact, like a lot of the images I have to soften, and then people go, why does it look like a painting?
Well, so you've got the perfect tool for the job for your look.
For my style of photography, yes.
Exactly. I think a lot of folks are jumping ship to Sony because Sony's better at focusing, and Sony does better video. And Sony will focus your video much, much, much better. You just put it on face detect, and it just follows it around, and you don't have to worry about it. And again, Nikon can't even keep up with one slow-moving face. It's there's just a dramatic difference in autofocus quality between the two cameras.
Are you going to jump?
I'm looking at options to be able to shoot video because I want to be able to have long-form conversations like this without worrying about the equipment.
Okay.
So I've got HDMI recorders to circumvent the 30-minute time limit on the DSLRs. And I'm getting a great look. But the problem is without having a whole team of assistants and camera operators, because wouldn't this be a little bit of a different conversation if there were a bunch of people in the room?
standing there, absolutely.
Even if they were sitting still,
right?
I'd be in the middle of a thought, talking to you, making eye contact.
And they move, and that's it.
And, and then there's some guy over there doing something.
You're no longer focused.
Exactly. Or I'm no longer focused literally with my camera if I move a little bit. So what happens is I need to stop down the lenses more to protect the focus, which requires more sensor gain or more light. So those are my choices.
Yeah.
So I can have a little more noise in the image and stop it down, or just have it so bright in here that it can feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like if I put on this light here, so this is just the hair light, that's at 40%. Okay.
I'm not liking it.
Yeah, you don't want to go to 100.
No.
So that's just a hair light off in the corner? That's 1%.
That's 1%. 1% is where I'll be at. Like, but it's still in my eyes. So
it's a nice catch light.
Yeah.
So those are the choices. I would prefer not to have really bright light in everyone's face while we're doing a video cast. I'd like to keep it a comfortable environment.
Although Paul Newton, right? That's the American actor, Paul Newton. I think that's him. Blue eyes. Newman. That's it. Blue eyes, right? It was in his contract that whenever there is any kind of video interview, he didn't have podcasting back then, but shooting the photographs, any kind of interviews, the room has to be lit to the max so that his eyes were as blue as they possibly could be, so that your pupils can close down and show more of a color of the eyes.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Joe McNally was telling a story one day about how he photographed this famous actress when she was in her late 50s. She's in
to fill in
she's in a beautiful evening gown,
yeah.
And it was an ad for high-end jewelry, and there was this huge emerald necklace around her neck.
Yeah.
And it said right in her contract that under no circumstances are they permitted to use any hard light on her face, and if they do, then she can just walk off the set and still get paid. So they just drew this huge line in the sand. Like, here's what's going to happen if you point hard light at this 57-year-old actress. Just no. So what they had to do was they had to use
separate the necklace separately.
They used a ultra narrow snoot.
Okay.
To fire sharp light right at the emerald on her and soft light on her face.
On her face.
So every contract for any photos or anything, they had that rule: no hard light on her face.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. So they do these things. I also noticed. That like your eyes, right? And this is what I have to notice also with my clients, right? Your eyes respond to the light very sensitively, and the pupil close down and I can see the color of your eye very easily, whereas mine don't do the same. So even though the light bothers me more often than not, is for some reason like my pupils don't contract as much, and when I shoot the clients who have different color of eyes, like other than brown, I feel like they want to show their eyes, brown also has a variation of color within it, almost black, brown, amber, that stuff. And I usually ask, if they want the eye for the eyes to pop, And so then I have to also like position the lighting in hoping that their eyes will respond to the light, in such a way that it's gonna close it down and close the pupil down and show the color of the eye better. But that's my latest thing I've been like paying attention to, because just my eyes don't respond. Like your eyes right now are pretty open, and I can see you have light eyes, whereas mine are probably like mostly dark, and you can see it. So if I shoot in low light, then I'm losing that little thing about the client, like, and say they like the color of their eyes, and I'm losing it, So I'm trying to counter that as well now.
All you have is like this hair light right now. I'm about to get a reflector. Get a little bounce. Yeah, now I can see when you look up. Yeah. Now I can see your eyes. Otherwise, it's just this shadow. It's very
see, and you are not exactly pensive in the light, but I can see your eyes. Like they're still responding.
But that's what I'm looking for to balance the video lighting. We've done a bunch of video tests, me and people here in this space, and if you want to get it really sharp, it has to get pretty bright.
Yeah.
And
I believe that because you have to close down.
That does affect the tone a little bit of the conversation. When you have very bright lights. Because some folks respond differently than others to that. There's sometimes a better flow to a conversation without the cameras on or without the video lights blasting in your face too brightly. Yeah. I even got some of those little falcon eye lights. I was thinking maybe we would just put a little fill on the table, and crank up the ISO a bit and just kind of have like a real soft, dark look.
Did it work? I think I've seen a couple of shots of that set up with you. No,
I did.
I almost feel like I did see it.
Hair light kind of a thing. The one that you're referencing was an overhead light with probably that beauty dish, the same one there. So that's probably a 28-inch beauty dish, something like that, with a reflector, diffuser, another silk wrapped around it, and then a bunch of cinefoil forcing the light just onto the two subjects across the table. So no light on the curtains in the background. So you would have it over here, in the middle. Yeah, so this will swing out and land right in the middle of the table. Yeah, so
then it would just cover both.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the setup that I saw.
And that works well for a 2-shot of the side profile.
Yes.
And I could shoot that just fine, but you're missing so much character and so many reactions without having the side shot coverage. Just having the one angle just isn't enough. And that's something I'd really like to wrap up. And the only step left really is just getting the lighting dialed in a way where the focus can be reliable enough. I'm not looking for perfection. It's just a podcast or video cast.
Yeah.
But I think it would be really nice to have that for folks who prefer to watch podcasts. I'm one of those people. I'm more visual.
Yeah, I like watching podcasts too. I do admit the only time I really appreciate listening to podcasts is when I'm driving. That's it.
Exactly. And sometimes I'll even convert them off of YouTube and make them in an MP3 and then put the USB in my car. Listen to them that way. Yeah. Only takes a few seconds to do that.
Over my head.
Yeah, very easy.
Yeah. Not that I would ever figure it out.
So if I'm going on very long drives, that's how I do it.
Yeah. What did you drop?
That was just the ice pack that I've had on my chair. It's hilarious, right?
What were you icing?
So one thing I noticed yesterday in that group shoot is just how different everyone's photos came out. You know, I was reminded, you mentioned John CeeLo earlier, how we would go and do like urban decay.
Yeah.
And there was a while there where we had like basically exactly the same Nikon gear.
Yeah.
And our photos always looked totally different.
Yeah.
Like we're in the same place photographing the same thing and even using the same gear and different photos.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's just everybody's got their own style that
what they're
transcends
looking for.
the gear to a certain extent.
Right, exactly. That's why I feel like it's not really for what I do. I feel like I don't really, if it's working, like I don't really need an upgrade, you know? Like John keeps buying things, right? He always upgrades, he keeps buying things. And he always tries to look for deals for me. So he'll call me and he'll be like, oh, you know what? They're selling this right now. They're selling this. There is a good sale. There is a good deal on this one. And I said, John, I'm all set. Like, I don't need anything. Like, if this is all I have for the rest of my life while making portraiture, you know, my style will change and develop, but it probably has to do more with Photoshop, you know, because the images I need to get to start working to like, that's my starting point. You know, I get that, you know, I get that now. Photoshop is something, so TJ has been telling me that he said, switch to Creative Cloud, right? Because the updates on the Photoshop there are insane, right? And I'm still in CS6.
I agree that the updates are insane.
Yeah?
I agree that...
Is it worth it?
I agree that it's insane that in the year 2020, Adobe has failed so miserably to address the number of problems that they've had for years. For example, when it just freezes up in selected mask mode, or if you're doing very complicated magnetic lasso, like 1 pixel selections. You know, sometimes I'm doing something really hypercritical and I'll set the magnetic lasso to 1 pixel. And so the dots are so close you can't even...
Right.
And it'll just freeze up.
Is it freeze up and crashes, or is it freeze up because it's thinking?
It'll sit there for 5-10 minutes.
And then what?
Yeah.
Then
and
what?
On my $5,500 MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
It'll sit there for 5 minutes and just have that beach ball.
Yeah, but
It's
then
done.
what?
Yeah, nothing. It freezes up. And
it freezes up.
And you have to force quit Adobe Photoshop.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Yeah. So that's the problem. So, I mean, if that's the case, I have the same problem in CS6. I don't need to upgrade.
Well, if you want Photoshop to fail on a regular basis, they've got plenty of versions available to you, and they'll all fail just as well.
Exactly. So I think I'm all set there, too.
Yeah, and then maybe you'll want to do video and get into Premiere, and that can fail too.
I'm not. Yeah.
Or you can, spend more time with Lightroom, which has its own set of issues sometimes.
Yeah, I about this fall, I had all kinds of issues with Lightroom. I'm not sure what I did. I never know what I do with my software to affect it in some way or another. So I just keep like resetting things and reconfiguring things and just hope that one of those, it's like I'm overshooting, okay? Yeah. I'm hoping that I'll hit that one lucky reason why it's not working. Sometimes I call you, sometimes I call John and I freak out with him, and other times I just sit and search for issues on Google, on their like boards. And they tell me, they tell me the issues. But no, I think, like I said, I think I'm okay where I'm at. I think where my growth needs to come from is not gear related. it's not. It's definitely in photoshopping techniques and perhaps in stepping out of the comfort zone with the style. Not that not to adapt a whole different style, but just keep growing the style that I have. And with this COVID, I kind of got shut down, and haven't done anything, and nothing creative and nothing at all, So, and my biggest inspiration was going to the museums, and now all the museums are closed, and it's nuts. I tried the movies. I tried watching different movies that would have like different periods in them, different styles, different lighting techniques that were used on set, Tarantino is very good about different lighting techniques that I happen to like. Inglourious Bastards, that was that movie has the lighting, pretty much the whole entire movie. The lighting that they're using is just magic to me. And once I figured out what it was, I did a few photo shoots with that lighting, and it's just magical. It's just absolutely, yeah. So sometimes movies are like really good for when museums are closed, But then you have to watch it 5 times because you sit down to watch a movie and all you're watching is the lighting technique, right? And then you're like, oh damn, I don't even know what the movie was all about. You go back, you start watching it again, and then you pick out, oh, look how they pose them, And oh, okay, so when they pose them this way, the lighting is that way, and when they pose them this way, the lighting is that way. I got you. And then you miss the whole movie again, so you start all over again, So by the 5th time, hopefully you watch the movie.
Exactly. There's so much talent in the film industry. I just went back and rewatched the Hannibal series.
Okay. How did you feel about the first one? Didn't we watch the second one together?
They made a television show. They based on the characters from the books and movies.
I did hear that.
So it's 4 movies in a blender.
Okay.
Because they do use some backstory that was introduced in the movie Hannibal Rising.
That's it. That's the one that we watched together.
That was a brilliant movie, I thought. Hannibal
I liked
Rising.
it too.
Now, it's an imperfect TV show with brilliant cinematography.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant.
I know what you mean.
Just the lighting and the just ultra narrow depth of field.
Oh, that's what I was going to talk to you
creatively.
About. I feel like a lot of times nowadays when the character is looking at me and they're at 45 degrees and the focus is on the eye that's in the back, I can't even listen to what they're saying. Like that's all that I see. The focus is on the wrong eye. The focus is on the wrong eye, And then like I see like shh, and it switches, Or when they go in and out, and the focus is, and sometimes it's purposely and sometimes it's really good storytelling, when they hold the focus in one plane and the face is moving in and out and somehow like it's appropriate. And then other times the focus is not moving fast enough with the subject, and that becomes very annoying and very uncomfortable. But I kind of feel like a lot of people in cinematography are using DSLRs for their movies.
There's a fun movie called Tire, or Rubber rather, which is about a
tire.
Yeah, did you see it?
No, but
it's just an old tire out in the desert that has the ability to think and act, and it happens to be a serial killer.
So
tire.
Like the voice in the back, right?
It doesn't speak, but all the characters in the film interact with the tire at times as if it's a sentient being.
Oh.
And so it's this really odd idea for a film that they did on an ultra-low budget out in the desert, very sparse cast. The cast is probably also the crew.
Yeah.
But it's a fun movie. It's an interesting idea. You can do it. But most cinema is manual focus. And it's usually one person's operating the camera, one person's operating manual focus.
Got it.
And they're watching the screen. So when you see it go out of focus, I noticed that
Somebody's
too.
sleeping.
It's just really hard to be able to see. Even if you're on a pretty good sized monitor, it's hard to be able to see exactly if you're in focus or not.
Right. And a lot of times, like I said, when it's that discrepancy with the eye focus, right? When you turn your face like 3/4, right? And it's the wrong eye that is in focus, that's one thing. But when the whole monologue is happening and the person giving the monologue is out of focus.
Yeah. That's a problem.
It's a big problem. And I just sit there, especially when it's done like in a movie theater, right? If I'm in a movie theater and I'm sitting there and it bugs the hell out of me, you know, and I cannot focus on watching the movie. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating. It's frustrating when you notice these things, you know, you're so blissfully unaware when you don't know, when you're just completely ignorant about these technical issues. And then when you are, it's just, and then you start telling the person who took you to the movie on a romantic date that the whole scene is out of focus and this whole scene should just be deleted, you know?
Yeah.
And you sound like a complete jerk. You know?
You're being hypercritical.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah.
Oh, it's awful. Mm-hmm. I love this ice pack.
Yeah, it works, right?
Looks good too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So no video today, so you can do all that.
I can do all of this thing. Well, I also have this beautiful zit that I haven't had since like 20 years old.
I didn't notice it till you pointed it out.
I know. But it's been bugging me. So I've been like thinking about it of like, oh, I hope it goes away by the time we do this. And then you gave me an option. So shouldn't have given me an option. But you gave me an option, so
Why not?
I took it.
You think I should have pushed you into doing video for your own good?
You could have if you just didn't tell me that you would separate the two, you know? Okay. Because the other guy who interviewed me, what did he say? He said it's going to be both, but I have yet to see the video. And honestly, I haven't even heard that podcast interview. I'm nervous.
The one where you were just sort of on the phone?
When I sound like I'm on the phone.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That one.
Okay.
Well, it was done in my basement and it was done over Zoom. So I don't know what I needed to do to make it. I didn't have all this wonderful equipment. I like the fact that if I move closer, it's like, I'm so close to the listener. Or if I move far away, you know, it's just kind of, I'm in the room.
Exactly.
I love it.
Maybe next time we'll do some video.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm in.
So we'll get some video and some blue backlight.
Let's do it too. Yep. I'll dress up. I'll wear my dress and I'll request for the soft light on my face.
Well, if we have blue backlight, what color dress are you going to wear?
Probably black.
Black.
Yeah.
That would work.
Black, who needs any other color when, you know, the personality is so colorful.
Especially photographers.
Right.
So wear black.
That's it all the time.
Yeah, these are going to be part of the kickoff. So I'm going to launch some video, some audio.
Okay.
So I've got 6 or 7 right now. So I'm going to go ahead and launch them all within the next few weeks.
We can wrap it up. Can we do the applause? Yay!
Well, let's hear it for LANA. Great job, LANA.
Thank you for having me. So
it was fun.
It was fun. Thank you so much. Hit the button.
We'll see you guys next time.
Haha.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Loitering podcast. Don't forget to ring the bell and subscribe and like and comment below and enable notifications and click the heart and leave a review and swipe right and Patreon and OnlyFans and make a donation and follow me on Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter and WhatsApp and WeChat and TikTok and QQ and Qzone and Reddit and Twitch and YouTube and Vimeo and Pinterest and Periscope and Valence and Zelle and Venmo and Untapped and Alpha and Duo and House Party and Peanut and Caffeine and 23 Snaps and Likey and Date Tracks and Academia and Fark and Me. We owned Tumblr and LinkedIn and Tagged and Nextdoor and Mixed and DeviantArt and Quora and Flickr and Meetup and Reverb Nation and Goodreads and Flickster and Pairing Bridge and Wattpad and Crunchyroll and eBay and Smugmug and Skyrock and My Heritage and Live Journal and VK and Classmates and SoundCloud and Bubbly and We Hearted and Influencer.